Hey, Hope Church. Here we are in week 3 of a series that we've called The Space Between, which is really inspired by what all of us are experiencing right now. Are we like 5 or 6 years away from March of 2020? I think that's accurate. That old way of being in the past is so far removed from where we are right now, and yet the new normal, the new way of being into the future seems so far in the distance that here we are in the space between. And we've wanted to look at this from a number of different angles. And so this Sunday, we're going to look at the space between mediocrity and mastery. Yes, if you are an achiever, if you like to get things done, if you like to win, this is your week, right? Or maybe not, because we're going to look at it through the lens of theology, through the lens of God, through the lens of Scripture, and we're going to look at the gift that the space between mediocrity and mastery is for us. Earlier this week, I was on a Zoom call with a young woman. She was delightful. I just love her already. I was just meeting her. She's in her 2nd or 3rd year in a ministry, and she'd asked for a coach, and one of her bosses had invited me to serve in that role, and it's just such an honor. And so I'm trying to get to know her, and I kind of wanted to know why she wanted a ministry coach, and asked her, and she said, well, here's the deal. I'm a straight A student. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. And in my leadership at this place and at this time, I feel like I'm getting straight C's. Well, that describes it perfectly. The space between mediocrity and mastery. I feel like I'm getting straight C's. I'm sure that I can already tell in our conversations over this next year that she's going to learn some tips and tricks. She's going to gain maybe some new patterns. Maybe I can help her develop some systems for her ministry, and she's going to be fine. She's going to be not fine. She is going to be great. She's going to be scooched much closer to mastery than mediocrity, and maybe she's already there. And it kind of doesn't matter, because in that space between mediocrity and mastery, here's something we need to know. No matter where we are on that, we're all loved and we're all seen as holy. Yes, that's right. No matter where we are in that place of mediocrity or mastery, we are loved and we are holy. You are loved and you are holy. I could just end this message right now, but I want to keep talking about it, because when I researched, I wanted to see what pop culture has to say about moving between mediocrity and mastery. And so when I Googled that, there are so many blogs about this. There are so many bloggers that want to tell you, yes, you, how you also can master life and get thin or get rich, or a lot of it was about getting rich, to be honest with you, how you could just through these simple steps wake up early every morning and have all of these regimens and do all of these things and have a goal for this morning, this afternoon, and this evening, which would tie into your weekly goal, which would tie into your monthly goal, which would tie into your 6-month goal, which would ultimately lead to your 5-year goal. And 10 years from now, you are the master. So a lot of that's out there, and it's like, oh gosh, I hope the church has something countercultural to say about that. And I am not criticizing goals. Goals are helpful to many of us, but is that what there is to life? Just creating goal after goal after goal so that you can achieve them and achieve this mastery? That I don't think is what Jesus is talking about when Jesus said that we are all offered an abundant life. Does abundant life mean mastering everything, filling your time so fully that you have practiced every skill that you can practice and you can master it? That sounds exhausting. And I'm an achiever, but that sounds exhausting. And it does not sound very faithful. But for just a second, I want to hold the mirror up to the church and ask you all, have any of you ever been at a church or in a Bible study or with a group of friends who are people of faith? And there's the same kind of competition to be a good Christian that there would be in our jobs or in other places? Like, hey, if you just do X, Y, and Z, you also will be an excellent Christian. If you just pray, read your Bible, be loving in all of your relationships, and also care for yourself, and then also serve the community every single day. And if you do all of that all the time, every day, you too can be a great Christian. And we have this God that says, you know what? Whether you do that or you don't do that, you're holy. Whether you do that or you don't do that, you are loved. There is this parable that those of us who are achievers don't really like, and it's the parable of the vineyard. In Matthew 20, the vineyard owner is male, but for the sake of reading the story this morning, I'm going to use the female pronoun. Jesus is only about a week away from his final week of life, or it's right around in that time that this shows up in Matthew 20. So he's really trying to let people know, this is the kind of life that God offers to you and to everyone, and trying to help people understand who God is and what God is like. And so he shares this parable. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for her vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, she sent them out into her vineyard. When she went out at about 9 o'clock, she saw others standing idle in the marketplace and said to them, "You also go out to the vineyard and I'll pay you what is right." So they went. When she went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, she did the same. And about 5 o'clock, she went out and found others standing around and said to them, "Why have you been standing idle all day?" And they said, "Because no one would hire us." So she said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to her manager, "Hey, call all the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired at 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, and then this went all the way through. When the first came, they thought, oh my gosh, if those who got here at the end of the day received the wage we thought we were going to get, maybe we're going to get more. But as they went through every group of people, everyone received the usual daily wage. And those people who had been there since early in the morning were really upset and expressed that they were upset and they thought that this wasn't fair. And the owner of the vineyard said, "Are you questioning how I use my money?" And they, looked. And then the owner of the vineyard said this, "Or are you jealous because I'm generous?" Ooh, okay. Wow. We have this God who is generous to all of us. If we're in the space between mediocrity and mastery, it doesn't matter if we're closer to mastering or if we are totally mediocre. We have this generous God who loves us and calls us holy. All right. So if that's true, then why do we care? Like, why do we ever care about getting toward mastering whatever it is that we want to master? That was my question with the young woman I was on the phone with, or on the call with a few days ago. But I didn't say, why do you care? I said, hey, will you tell me what led you to this position? Like, how are you here? And she goes, how far back do you want me to go? And I said, hey, however far back is appropriate, I'm here to listen. And her eyes lit up and she started to tell her story of her college years in a campus ministry, and then how she ended up in seminary, and some years of service in South Africa, and some time of being there, and what happened that led to the position at this particular ministry at this particular time. And as she got to the end of it, I said, wow, you're really passionate about this ministry, aren't you? Oh, I am. Do you feel like it's your purpose in life at this time, in this moment, right now, this year, to be its leader? I do. This is my purpose. It was kind of like, yeah, this is my purpose. So then all of a sudden, when we're talking about some tips and tricks and systems, it's not simply so that she can master this for the sake of mastering it. It's because it's her purpose, and she wants to serve in the best way that she can. A few weeks ago, when it became clear that there might need to be space for digital learning, and there might be this gap between those who have access to spaces and those who do not, and we started to think about Hope Church's role in that, we were very much at the mediocrity side of this space between. We didn't know how to do that or what to do, and probably we're still somewhere in that space between. We certainly have not mastered how to offer a safe space in the midst of a pandemic for children who may not have access to Wi-Fi and mentors where they are. That's not a situation that we've ever found ourselves in. And yet, it seems like that for right now, this is our purpose. So we're motivated to find the answers to it, not simply for the sake of achieving, but because this is what it feels like passionately needs to be our purpose now. You know, who knows what it'll be by January and what will be needed and why. We're going to learn so much, but this is our purpose right now. There is a dear friend who I actually got to see on vacation last week, and he has a daughter who's 21, 22. She has been a swimmer since she was 9 years old, and actually has achieved quite a bit. In high school, she achieved a number of state titles. Let's see, I want to get this right. Multiple state titles, 2 U.S. titles, 23 Big 12 titles, a 3-time conference swimmer of the year. She's in the Hall of Fame at her university. And you know what she could have been doing, probably should have been doing this summer? Is swimming in the Olympics. That's what she thought summer of 2020 would look like for her. She's mastered her sport. She's not the only one. There are a number of other people who have also mastered that sport, but that's the level that she's at as a swimmer. And so in her hometown newspaper, the Indianapolis Star, they interviewed her. And they wanted to know if she was deeply disappointed that she didn't get to go to the NCAA championships and that she didn't get to go to the Olympic time trials or to the Olympics. And she said, no, because I'm not the only one who didn't get to go. There are athletes around the world who didn't get to do this. And here I sit as someone who is healthy, who's happy, who has dear friends and family who love me. Yeah, I'm doing well. And And then this happened, and perhaps this was a little bit more of a surprise, but she was offered a pro contract. Though she'd graduated from college, that would have kept her in the sport. So if the Olympics happened next summer, she would still be kind of competing and ready for that. And she stepped away from the sport because she feels at this time in her life that her purpose is to be a teacher. And so she's gone back to college. She's doing student teaching this semester, which in her district will be student teaching online. That's how she's going to learn this semester. She's going to help serve children in her community who are going to need help. And when we asked her dad, are you surprised that this is what she's doing? And he said, this is her purpose right now. She feels like she has found her purpose at this time, at this juncture in her life, and she's going to invest fully in that. So here we have a young woman who, in that continuum between mediocrity and mastery, what she was doing, what she could continue doing, she was a master at. And yet she's chosen to come back into the space between. Anyone in their first year, I don't mean they're mediocre, but we all have to learn. We're in this space between, and it's so cool to hear that when she learns how to teach, when she practices teaching, it's for the purpose of serving these kids and fulfilling her passion at this time. I keep saying at this time because we're in such a strange time right now. So I'm not asking anyone, what's your 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan? Maybe you can do that and you're excellent at that. But right now, what's your plan? What do you need to kind of remove from your life or add to your life such that you can begin to figure this out? And if you're like, I really have no idea, I could come up with a calendar of goals for you that we talked about at the beginning of this, not of this call, of this sermon. But I want to remind all of us of this CARE system. I don't know if you remember it. I'm going to try to hold this up to the screen. I'm going to read it. Let's see, are we up there? There we go. This is a fancy tech right now. Create space for listening. I mean, listening to yourself, your soul, your spirit, the needs around you. Ask self-awakening questions. Does this drain me or does this fill me up? Does this make me feel exhausted and unhealthy, or does this just enliven me? Is this something that I could do right now? Maybe it's not long-term. Reflect theologically. Does this match with my values? Is this match with what I would tell someone that I believe? Is this what I think that God would be calling me to do? And then finally, enact the next most faithful step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You do not have to move toward mastery. And indeed, you're loved and you're holy no matter what. You don't have to achieve anything. But if you feel sort of caught in this space between, you can begin to ask these questions that help enliven within you that which God has created you to become. And then when you have this sense of, who am I created to be? Who am I created to become? Then you can begin to practice the skills necessary, or read the books that would be helpful, or talk to the mentors that could help you, and scooch toward the mastery of whatever it is, but not for the purpose of achievement, not for the purpose of love, not because you get brownie points in heaven, but because you're getting to be who God called you to become. And you don't have to know who that is or what that is forever. Consider what that is for right now. And you're not alone. If you want to be able to talk to someone about this or kind of just begin to brainstorm this, call us, call Kara, call me. We can have a Zoom call. We can do a socially distanced, masked conversation. We can find ways to connect with each other so that we can reflect together. Because you're holy and you're loved and you have a purpose. I'm so proud of you for that. I'm so proud of what you're doing and how you're doing it right now. This is a hard time to live in. And we said this in March and we said this in May, and I'll say it again in August. It's fine to be gentle with yourself, to get a good counselor, to have good friends, and to open yourself up to what it is that you need to be doing right now. Love you. Amen.